Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight, we are going to take a very quiet, gentle time and talk about the health of our children, the food that they eat, how they nourish their bodies, and how to be able to support them with a lovely book by Dr. Richard-Saracen. The book is Who Said You Can't Have Ice Cream for Dinner? Not Me. And what we're going to be talking about is how do we make choices for our children, our grandchildren. Perhaps maybe they can teach us in reflection how to eat a little bit better, how to bring some energy into our body, how to know how exercise needs certain foods, but also, too, how to know how to have the right foods at the right time in the day for each person. How about that? Because, if we look at it, now that I'm almost 70, I look back at my childhood and it was, in the 50s and 60s, that was when things started showing up on grocery store shelves. There were boxes and cans. There were things that were at the fast food place. And all of this was new and everybody wanted it. And everybody started to grow up and believe that was real food. Now in the year 2023, the past several years, people have said, we're going to cook our own food, we're going to eat at home, we're going to be able to find out what's really in the food we are taking into our bodies. That's what we'll be talking about today is how to nourish a healthy body. Dr. Saracen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you. Don't you think, Dr. Saracen, that we really look back at history and we say food has really had some kind of a journey, don't you think?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. It seems that, I can remember at my grandmother's house, she never had cans and boxes. Everything she would get that day fresh. And we would always shop at the butcher's. And we'd always go to the dairy place. And we would always go to, the bakery. How did you perhaps reflect on your childhood to be able to think about food and how it nourishes your body?
Well, one of the things that I even bring up in the book also was I remember I have a brother and a sister, and back in the day we always, were there at say 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we all had a family dinner. And I remember specifically, and I even asked my mom about this when I was doing the book, is we had to sit there and we had to eat everything on our plate.
Right.
And when we went out, say me and my brother went out to play like basketball after dinner or something in the backyard, and my sister went upstairs to play with dolls when we were younger. I mean, it would suffice to say that we were using up a little more energy than, say, she was, but we all had to eat the same amount. And that's what I wanted to bring up because, this changes everything because we are individuals and we do need maybe not different foods, but not as much.
Yeah. I think also it's important to notice that a long time ago, just as you shared, we were out burning the heck out of our bodies all the time. I can remember going out in the morning, come back when it's dark, and that would depend upon the foods that you ate. And you would be always hungry all the time. Don't you remember? I can remember saying, I'm always hungry, I'm always hungry. Well, yeah, because you just went on your bicycle for 15 miles, or you were swimming for 3 hours. And, of course, you're hungry. But now, in the year 2023, we look back and we say, oh, my goodness, I was always hungry, hungry, hungry. And we try to limit sometimes our children's food if they're also active. And that's maybe not the best thing because they're not getting enough food for energy. Some may be getting too much food and not burning it off, but there are many children, too, who are not getting enough. Have you also seen that?
Yes, it's a good possibility, but you got to, and that's why I did this, because if you look back and you take a look at the times, like when we grew up and how it has processed over time, life has changed. And the biggest part is, you got the electronics, and you don't see as many people at the basketball courts or playgrounds anymore, and because of the dangers that are out there. And then we always had a family at dinner. Everybody had to be there. And now, two parents need to work, and life has changed on all of us, and it's put a burden on us, and not all of it's good.
I think that we look at the past several years, and there's been an influx of people wanting to know, what is food about? So I think your book, Who Said You Can't Have Ice Cream for Dinner, is very timely because many people are having that discussion. What is food about? What is it made out of? I think someone had said to me at one time, they said, what did you have for dinner? And I sent them a little text with a picture, and it had a carrot, a piece of celery, half of an onion, a banana, and I don't recall what the other item was. And they said, no, I was asking you what you had for dinner, not what was on your counter. And I said, I'm having what's on my counter for dinner. That was what I was having. But we've gotten so used to the idea of a recipe as what we had for a meal. So dinner would be spaghetti with the meatballs Italiano or something. And we would kind of form a picture in our mind, and then we would go out and try to find the words and the foods to reproduce that. But if we said to someone, maybe let's have a tomato, maybe have a little piece of chicken, and then maybe have a little piece of squash, that's totally different in the way in which you perceive food, don't you think?
Yes, but one of the most important things that I learned when I was doing this project was that it's so important to try to understand that the body is like an engine in the car. And your mom or dad has to go get gas and, fill it up. They don't have to fill it up every day if they're not using it all, but what you put in your body, you want to utilize as energy. And that's the energy you get from playing. So you need the food for that day, for that energy that you needed that day. I think a lot of times when you and I were growing up, you heard all the things of, drink the milk, you'll grow big and tall, and all those things, and it's really not true. You just need fuel for your body, and that's what I equate food to, and I try to explain that in the best way I can, that you just need it for what you do that day. So if you're on a day that you may not be doing a lot of stuff outside or working out or something like that, well, you might not need as much as you would, like when you were just talking about, like if you rode your bike 15 miles and you were hungry again at the end, because what you did is you burned off all that energy that you just put into your body for that day.
Yes, it is so different. And I think also, too, the idea of we eat different foods on different days. Kids might be more active on the weekend. They might be sitting in school every single day, and it's sort of like, oh, okay then, So the idea is that sometimes when kids start to gain weight and people start to fret, I would say, is it the answer that we have to start punishing them 7 days a week for that? Perhaps maybe we just have to look at what foods they're eating, what days, and maybe make a little shift. And that's what your book is about, identifying foods that will fuel you at different times of the day, but also different days of the week, perhaps?
Right. That would be mostly correct, but what I had to do for this, and I incorporated it in the program itself, is because we don't, my daughter right now, like when she goes to school and she has lunch, they got the cards now, and they can purchase whatever they want on the card itself, and so they may not be eating exactly what you send them to school with. And then when you come home at night, the parents, what I talk about is they're real busy, but they want to get their kids fed. So, if I could grab a pizza from the pizza restaurant, or I can get McDonald's, or I could get something like that real quick, I could get them fed, and then I'm done for the night, and they're all fed. Well, that's what I tried to take out of, our life, our busy life as parents, and the kids with their life, and they're on the run with, this activity, that activity. So I tried to make it so that it was able to give the help to the parents as well as the children, and everybody is happy, but they eat the different things. And what I mean by eating different things is it does not matter what the food is, but as long as they break it down into protein, carbohydrates, and sugars, and eat at the right time, it gives the body, the metabolism of the child's body to work that off during the night when they're resting, and to build them up, and then they start anew the next day.
Let's start about the word sugar. I know for myself, there were times in my life when I wasn't doing it. There were times in my life when it was around all the time. But it didn't seem to be something, it was a focus. In other words, I wasn't seeking it out. Yet there are many people now who have children that's all they want is sugar, so the parents say. And perhaps maybe the idea of what kind of sugar is it? Is it white? Is it refined? Is it raw? Is it maple syrup? Is it in the prepackaged foods? Is it in fruit? Or what is it in? What is the sugar that they are looking for? And perhaps make a different choice.
Well, you're right in you would like to make the absolute right choices. But when you're talking about children, especially younger children and whatever, they want instant gratification. And so if you can confine when these things are being utilized or used, like whether it's Halloween, how are you going to keep the kids away from Halloween candy? That's sugar. But I guess I would say that the biggest thing is the sugars. The sugars are in fruit. The sugars are in candy. Yes, I know they're different kinds of sugars, but the problem is they're processed the same way. You just get more energy from the sugar that's in the fruit, but you don't want to have that at night or to finish up. You don't want to have you have it before, so you could, like you said, I go out and play for an hour before they have the dinner, and you were like the same thing is. The parents have time to cook a dinner and have it later. The kids get out and use up all that sugar or refined sugar or even natural sugar. They get to use that up by playing. And that's the biggest thing. But in the beginning of this, they don't have to do that. It can be a learned process, because this whole thing is, because if you have a child that's picky eater, or I heard so many different things, how do you do for this and do for that? I give them an opportunity with this book. Pick out what you want. You eat what you want for these couple of weeks, and you follow it along. And then you have just learned the tools to keep you right into adulthood. That you can always come back to this and say, this is what I'm doing. I leave pages in the book so that they can write down, and it could be their Bible, and they don't have to wait for 18 and go to Weight Watchers or get their stomach stapled and all that kind of stuff, which is dangerous stuff.
Yeah. Let's talk, Dr. Saracen, about how you start about in your program with breakfast. You know, breakfast for many might be colored cereal. It may be whatever bar you can grab on your way out the door because you're late, or perhaps maybe something that went into the blender or something you can shake up on your way in the car and drink it there. What do you think about breakfast? I know for my own patients, I always talk about breakfast. Do your absolute best that you can there. And it might be that shaker food, but it might also be the fruits and the vegetables that you might put inside of it. Or it might be, if sitting down to a bowl of cooked oatmeal might not be the best, it might be oatmeal granola that you made yourself the night before or whatever, or the week, and packaged it in little baggies, and the kids started with that. So how do you reframe with children what to eat for breakfast?
Well, what I did, and for myself, and, I'm the adult here, so what I did is I have oatmeal every morning, and that gives me a good solid base to go on. Now, kids are going to be different. They're going to want their favorite things. If they want a donut, or they want pancakes, or they want any of those kinds of foods, have them in the morning. That's the best time to have them. I'm not saying it's perfect. What I'm saying is they can get something into their stomach, because you don't want them to go without any breakfast, especially when they're in school, because then you go to school hungry. And but the big thing with the kids is they want what they want. So what I try to do is say, okay, you can have this stuff when you're here or when you're there, but at some point it ends, and then we go in a different direction. And the beauty about that was, there was a little story with my daughter was she called me up the one day when she was at school, and she said, "Dad, I just had a couple of cookies. I didn't eat the way you wanted." And I was like, "That's okay, Ava. You can do that." But I knew that even if she was cheating at that time, or per se that one time, it was okay, because she had the rest of the day to work it all off and get rid of those sugars and that energy. And then she would have her meal when she got home, because she would have what we would make, or now she can make. And the beauty about that is if the kids want to get away with something, or they don't want to stick with something, you have to make it where they can fit it in, or they're not going to do it if they don't want to do it. But now they have an opportunity with this structured thing, and along with the parents, that they can all learn. And it's almost like I'm trying to teach the kids so that they can teach the parents with the book. And that's the way I made it, so that they can. I don't want to see a kid go into the mirror and look at, why don't I look like this, or why don't I look like that? And it's a devastating thing for me, because I had a daughter, and I didn't want anybody to say anything bad with them. But there's so many children out there that, why can't I be like him, or why can't I be like her? And now you have something that you can follow, that your parents could follow, or whoever's your caretaker. And I think that's that's what we needed. Now, one thing, and I know you probably won't agree with this, because it's not, I had to look at, I think you were talking about when you, with the cans and the stuff at the store, and we have to have them, and all these different, chemicals that are in it, and to make them last longer, and, the corn syrup and those sugars and all that other stuff. I don't know if we can ever get away from the McDonald's or the Big Macs or the open buffets or the things that different places are putting out. So what I did is, well, if we can't get away from it because I'm only one person and everything is advertised on TV and big business is big business. But if you can neutralize that type of food into a certain time, you will be able to burn it off. And when I say burn it off, is you're burning off that fuel that you're putting in for the day. Now, when you go to, and the reason this works the way it does, and I will say that it cannot not work, even though that's a double negative, is because when the child goes to sleep, you would know this than more than any other lot of people because of what you do, but the metabolism on the younger kids is so much faster. And
right.
I tell everybody that when they have young kids and you're cuddling with them in the bed and they're falling asleep or whatever, they're like a heat blanket. And you have to actually move away from them because they get you too hot. Well, that's their metabolism at work. And so whatever extra that they have in them that have been stored is getting used up as that heat. That's the energy that they're using. That's why this works so fast.
Right. You know what I think, though, too, Dr. Saracen, is that the idea is that when you ask the kids, what do you want for breakfast, in your book you have a list of some ideas, and when you have the ideas out there, then they can pick and choose, and it's not a free-for-all. It's not kind of drive you crazy parents, and then the parents end up making the poor choice and pushing it on the child. So if the child can make a reasonable choice from a list and the parent is kind of prepared for that, it tends to cut down on all of this chaos around mealtime, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it benefits with the kids that, you know, they start reading the labels. They start reading the stuff that they're putting into, and it's a constant learning. And that's what I mean by the tools that they can go into adulthood and they can feel good about themselves because they don't have the answers. I just try to give them answers to this. And when I first started this, and you know, I did it with my daughter, and it was, you know, she was going to a recital. I didn't realize that I knew from patients and stuff like that, what do I do for my kid? What do I do? But it wasn't until my daughter that I realized that when she came to me about her stomach, to flatten her stomach, I didn't realize at the time that I was going to be able to do it. It was just that I just knew what I knew and put it down to her. And then once it worked, and it worked so fast that I was like, you know, I had no idea that this problem was as big as it was. It's just a monster for the kids, and it all goes back to to what you said about all the different things that we've been growing up with that have put on shelves, and all the choices that you have, and you know what the kids like, and but that's why I put down like the foods on the breakfast or a list of the vegetables. Is, you know what? Take some time and try something different. Think out of the box. Right. Maybe you'll like it.
Yeah.
And then that could be another thing for you.
I think as parents, we always tend to push our likes, our patterns, the way in which we do things, and our beliefs and truths onto the children. I see many parents who bring their kids in, and the child is a vegan, or they are a grain person, or maybe they just do protein or whatever. And you ask, and the kids don't even really know what real food is actually about. They just know it is as a diet name, and they're following it because that's what their parents give them. You know, I can remember this one child. She's only 3 years old, and I asked her something, and she says, "Oh, we don't do sugar in our house." And it was like, "Oh, okay." And I just kind of like stepped back and just let it go. And then everything was a snack to her. She wanted a snack all the time. Snack, snack, snack. What she didn't realize is that she was hungry. She was just asking for something different other than what the parents had kept putting down as what they required them to eat, so to speak. So I think we have to sometimes step back and say, and your book is a great tool for this, step back and say, what is breakfast about, what is lunch about, what is dinner about, and how can we construct these patterns of how we will eat, what we will have around in our home, and the times we should eat for our best activities. That's what you're truly asking of families, correct?
Yes, and I never even thought about it that way, that I was putting it in. But as you were talking about it right there, that's pretty much what I'm doing, because I want the whole family to do it. And I want the whole family to be a whole family and to sit there, you know, and have dinner and sit down, and instead of running out, you know, flying out, they got this activity, that activity, you know, bring a family back to the table again.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a big thing. And the one thing that I want to mention here is that a lot of people, when they're talking about the foods, not so much about, we all hear about the sugars and the carbohydrates and all that. You know, the sugars and the carbohydrates get processed as sugars. So you got to double there. So if you're having a sugary product and then you're having, you know, pasta or something, and it's enriched or whatever, you know, that's just more carbohydrates or sugars that you're putting into the body. So I try to lessen that at night. But the one key that I think a lot of people will find out, and it could be many different foods, is that people, as soon as they think that people got to change the way, and you brought it up earlier with, you know, you rode on the bike and you went out to after dinner and you came back and you were hungry. And what I put in here is, and I did this with many different people, is one of the favorite foods is bacon. People love bacon, right? And so you can have that as your snack at night. And but people say, oh, that's fat, whatever. We utilize fat. Fat is good. And that's a hard thing for people to understand. But that heat that your body, that's burning that fat. Your body needs fat.
Yeah. You know, I think that sometimes we take fads and we extend them out. You know, I have one grandchild who is a carb person. Another one, she will not eat any carbs at all. She'll only eat meat. And I have another one who she just loves to be able to have things like in little bits and pieces, like a little piece of this and good to go, and a little piece of that and good to go. So I think sometimes people get super crazy. I know for myself with 4 kids under 10 at one time, you know, in the 80s when I was raising these kids, I didn't give them choices then. It was, we're going to have our dinner, everything was cooked. We didn't do stuff, but otherwise. But dinner was, they had their vegetables on their plate first. When you're done with your vegetables, you can have the rest of the meal. Then it might have been like maybe some kind of starch or protein or carbohydrate or something, and then a protein. But unless the vegetables were finished, they didn't go on to the rest of the meal. And my kids to this day don't do fast foods. We don't have frozen foods in our freezer. We don't. They never got into that kind of click, so to speak. So it's definitely how you engage with your children, how you raise them what you share with them about food, whether it's, people tend to say it's good or bad, and then kids have this in their head, it's good and bad. And that's how they label things. So it's kind of really all up to us as adults to be able to have these discussions. And I would say update the discussions all the time, because what you feed your child at the age of 3 is different from the age of 4, 5, 6, and definitely different from the ages of 14, 15, and 16, right?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about that. But even with the fast foods, and again, I believe, like you believe, it would be great if you could not have any of them. But this is what we're conditioned, I would say. We're conditioned to have these foods. They're quick foods. They're fast foods. But if you can take, even if it was a McDonald's quarter pounder, and you want the quarter pounder, you can have the quarter pounder, but you take the bread off of it, and then you could have the rest of the stuff that's on it. You're not getting any fries because it's late and there are too many carbs, and you're not getting any soda because that's too much sugar. But you could have it with water. And the funny thing about all that, when you think about it, it just doesn't taste the same when you have water with it. And if that's the way you want to go, you could have it, you know. But you could have it, but you're going to have it this way.
It's so funny. I had we don't normally eat at those places, but I had taken my child to one at one time, and the person asked the child, my son, what he wanted, and he said hamburger with lettuce and tomato. And they said, we don't have lettuce and tomato here. And he says, well, what do you put on it? And it was like, no, I don't want all of that stuff. So we had left because he didn't want it. But I think once you have your child into the idea of what foods go with each meal and what is really nice to start to eat, you know. It's nice to have a hamburger, but you can have lettuce and tomato on it, and you can have pickles on it because the pickle's a cucumber. You know what I mean? You can add all of these different things on top of it. It's sort of like they get, you know, oh my gosh. I know there was one person I was talking to at one time, and they ordered their hamburger, and they said, burger with mayo and none of the other stuff. And I said, oh, can I have all of his other stuff? And then I just made a salad with it. It was lettuce, tomato, and it was a cheese, and it was all of this, and when it was bacon and all this other stuff that went on top of the hamburger. So I took all of that and made my salad, you know. So I think sometimes we have to give them options to try, and that's where your food list comes in. It's sort of like, well, I don't even know what that is. Well, let's try it for this week. Let's see how we can incorporate it into breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Same thing with oatmeal, like when you can make your own granola, or you can grind it up and make oat milk, or you can make it, as you said, you know, you have oatmeal in the morning. There's so many different ways to change food to be able to incorporate it into your meals, perhaps.
Oh, definitely. And I think a lot of the stuff too, and I know I'm going back to the fat part, but like when you're going to class, you know, grade school, whatever the case may be, and you give your child a sandwich, and you know you have the enriched bread, all that stuff, you can, even though they're processed foods that you're getting, you know, from the deli, and you know, ham and cheese, or whatever you're making them, you can roll those things up into finger foods, and the cheese, it gives the fat in the diet, and even if it's a protein, which hopefully it is with the fat, is it fills them up, and so they won't have that hunger feeling that you get a lot of times when you do go on these other diets. This is more of a way to change your eating habits to match your activities so that you don't add on excess weight that's not needed, that you can't use up.
And you also, too, can be able to successfully do those activities. I know there were times, when my daughter wished she would not eat, at a certain time for whatever reason, and it's like, well, you're going out and you're going to play racquetball now, and she would pass out. And it'd be like, well, okay then. What's your sugar right now? Let's do a little finger prick and see. When was the last time you ate? What were you eating? Why did you not want to eat? And how to spread that out more successfully. Sometimes gorging down food 5 minutes before you hit the playing field is not the best, but definitely having things spread out, and having some stores of energy in your body is the best, right?
Oh, definitely. When I was in college, and I played a lot of sports, but I was playing football at the time, and we were playing a game. I believe it was a night game, and so we had our food laid out for us, what we were going to have for breakfast, and then what we could have a little bit before. Now, I don't think the coaches or anybody really knew exactly what they were doing back then, but what I realized later on when I was doing the book and then watching different things was they were giving you foods that you could digest and use the energy from those foods in a positive manner by the time you got to the game. And nobody ever really told you about that back then, and they don't really tell you about it now. They just give you the kids whatever they need at the big schools and stuff like that, and the kids eat whatever they want. But the one thing that really disturbed me about in a long time, but now that we got the internet, is how many girls that are going to college and this book is for all kids right through high school. They really need to learn it. But when they say they go to college, and you hear about the first time at college, and they go to drinking parties or frat parties or whatever they have there, and they don't eat anything as far as food because they're going to have so many calories in the alcohol they are drinking. And then they get so inebriated because they had nothing to soak up that alcohol. And if you're not doing it on a regular day, there's no reason for you, you get so drunk and you pass out, and it's all the wrong things. You can still eat. Just don't eat at certain times. If you go out and, your first time at college and you don't have that much experience, you could take your life in your hands. Learn how to do it and don't pass on anything.
Yeah, I think it's also, too, in closing, Dr. Saracen, we can also talk about the word diet, the word fad, the word of what's going around today, so to speak, because there will always be something out there that will have a promise at the end. So what you're promising by sharing your program is that you'll be nourished, you'll know about how energy can be stored in your body and how it can be utilized, where other diets are saying you can either just lose weight, you could have pretty skin, or, you could be just like with the in-group. So you're kind of taking a different aspect onto how do you raise children that have a positive outlook on food and they won't be swayed by those fads?
Well, if you noticed in the book, I do not use the word diet. Specifically because this is not one of those ones you were just talking about that are out there.
Right.
This is eating foods. You could have all the foods you want, just have it and get yourself back to the weight you want to be, and you'll be healthier. And diabetes and all these things that could happen as a child, and it would work all over the place and help so many kids and save so much money and all those kinds of things. And I just wanted to get the truth out there, try it, and it will work. And you know what? you have something that you can pass on to future children or your children later on. Just know how to combat obesity or gaining weight without all these other things mixed in.
Right. Well, Dr. Saracen, it was a pleasure to have you with us. Can you share with the listeners how to find out more information about your work? That would be great.
They can contact me at my website, which is dr-jeanette.com is my website, and they can ask me any questions there, or they can contact me through an email that will be there. And I just want to touch as many lives as I can and get this started and get this problem eradicated, just not only in the United States, but it's all over the world that people don't know how to do it. And they be eating different foods, but we can make it work no matter where you are. It's for kids. That's what it is. We're all kids, all socio-economic, no problems. If you could eat hot dogs or you could eat filet mignon, we can help.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Saracen, it was a pleasure to have you with us so much. We thank you for sharing with people today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
If you'd like to find out more information about Dr. Richard Saracen, again, the book is Who Said You Can't Have Ice Cream for Dinner? Not Me. Please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to go directly to his website for more information. And definitely it's about look at your life, look at your food, look at your energy, look at the things that you do as an adult, and then look at your children and see how you can both come together to be able to find a plan to nourish your body, to be able to have activities that you can expend some energy and really see how you can join together versus having 6 different meals going on in the house at the same time and everybody going off in their own wings and nobody's coming together. It truly is about coming together and be able to know how to nourish body for health, body, mind, and spirit these days, because that's truly where we're all going in the year 2023. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr-jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.